Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the St. Francis College Women's Film Festival, third annual. We're really excited today because we have a pitch workshop from a great filmmaker and crowdfunder, Christina Raia. And this is part of our partnership with the Center for Entrepreneurship, who have pushed for having us be partners with Seed and Spark, who are also great partners. And Christina what is your official title at
Director of Crowdfunding.
Director of Crowdfunding at Seed and Spark, which is an amazing platform for crowdfunding. For those of you that don't know, I'm Dr. Palmer, Augusta Palmer. I teach in the Department of Communication Arts here at St. Francis College, and I'm really happy to see a lot of new faces as well as some familiar ones here this afternoon. So Cristina Raya is a filmmaker, and she made her first feature in 2013. And that was called Summit. Summit, and it's a horror film, and it won all kinds of awards and played at a lot of festivals. She's a veteran of the festival circuit, as well as a veteran and successful crowdfunder. And she's just finished post-production on a new film called About a Donkey. And she brings a tremendous amount of expertise in pitching. I keep talking about crowdfunding because she's like the crowdfunding guru. I was actually wondering the other day, will she object to me tweeting that we had a crowdfunding guru coming? I should have asked her. What do you say?
I'm okay with it.
You're okay with it. All right, good. I thought she would be okay with it. But she also has a lot of experience pitching because she's always got a new project going, and you have another project, right?
Yeah.
After About a Donkey, so you're pitching it. So she's gonna give us what we need to know about pitching, and also this is going to be interactive, so you guys need to be ready to participate. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Christina. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. We just need to move the slides over. Thanks. So hi, I'm Christina. I am a filmmaker, but I'm also the director of crowdfunding at Seed and Spark. Before we jump into pitching, I'm just going to kind of run through what Seed and Spark is. We're a crowdfunding and streaming platform for filmmakers and film-related projects like film festivals and film websites. We are really committed to filmmakers being able to have independent, sustainable careers through their audience and really make content through the people who want to see it and distribute it directly to those people, to that audience, without really losing the rights to their work or kind of being able to have data transparency and take that audience from project to project throughout your career. And so that's what our platform is all about. I can totally answer questions about Seed and Spark. We're committed to inclusion. We really want to highlight underrepresented voices, but this class is going to be about pitching. That's a huge part of our platform. If you crowdfund with us, you do have to pitch your project to your audience. You have to do a pitch video. That's like the number one element of a crowdfunding campaign. However, it's not only related to film. You have to pitch, a business if you're starting a business or any kind of artistic endeavor or creative endeavor. And it isn't just in a video. It is sort of one-on-one in pitch contests or to investors or, just trying to gain interest in one-on-one conversations. I use every opportunity I can to just sort of test out different phrasing and how my message is coming across whenever I can, whenever I meet someone. So where do you start? Really, you're a storyteller, and so you have to think about how you can, your pitch is really just, you're telling a story, but it's thinking about who you're speaking to, what your mission is with each interaction, and what the goal is really, because what your goal is from that individual or that specific audience really dictates the words that you use and the way that you sell what you're trying to pitch. It could be that you're trying to get people to watch the thing, or it could be that you're trying to get them to put money into it, or to join in making it. There are a lot of different ways that you would pitch and a lot of different reasons that you would pitch, and they're all a little uniquely different. So really, again, it's just breaking it down. Who are you pitching to? Why are you telling this story? When When are you telling it? And what do you want people to hear? Really, a lot of the exercises we're going to do today are about how people are interpreting what you're saying, because I think that's the most important part of pitching, is getting not feedback on necessarily how it's coming across or how you're doing, but how it's translating. What are they getting from that? Is your story clear? Does it make sense? Is what you're hearing in your head and what you think what you're making and saying, is that translating to the person you're speaking to? Are they getting what they're supposed to out of it? And that's what we're going to do later. But before we get there, you have to start somewhere. So really, the best thing you can do when you leave here today is just start pitching your idea or your business or your film, whatever it is, to everyone in your life, your friends, your family, collaborators. So for instance, most of my friends are other filmmakers, and yes, filmmakers are consumers of content, but they are not really a representation of sort of mass audiences. We like very specific kinds of content. We're very into like the nuances of making of things, and most audiences are not really thinking about that. And so I try not to just pitch to my filmmaker friends, because the kinds of feedback I would get, the kind of questions I would get will be very filmmaker specific, but won't be a reflection of, my true audience, the sort of broader sense of people that I'm trying to reach. And so I'll pitch to my family members. That can be a little bit of a gray area too, because like my mom, for instance, would watch anything that I make. So like getting information from her, it's always going to be positive. Like she's not really going to engage with me in a critical way. And so I try to find people that are, that will be neutral. And so if I'm like, sometimes whenever I go into Dunkin' Donuts, for instance, before a shoot, if I'm getting like a box of Joe and it's like 5 a.m., they always want to know what I'm doing. Why do I need a box of Joe? And so I tell them I'm a filmmaker, and then they find that really fascinating. They want to know all about that, and I'm like, it's 5 a.m. I don't want to be having this conversation, but I like take a sip of coffee and I'm like, well, let me tell you, and I pitch to them, and I get a sense of how they respond to that and if it's resonating. My husband is not a filmmaker, and so I'm really bad at small talk. I can only talk about like politics and filmmaking. And so what I do is pitch to them, like any coworkers of his, that if I'm at a party, I'm like, hey, can I test out an idea on you and hear what you think of it? And so it's really just like looking for real life interactions. And also, I just did a class on social media. Some of you were there. Social media is a great place to test out messaging. And even though you're not, doing live pitching, you're kind of pitching, you're doing, social media pitching, you're testing out how people respond to things, and that's all part of this exercise. And it's a great way to connect with people that you aren't directly connected to. So really, you want to make sure that you practice. That's why, as I said, every opportunity should be a mission to get a pitch in there. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. There are things that you want to kind of work out, like trying not to say and like so much and knows. However, I do think that sometimes you can be so focused on trying not to say something or trying not to do something that you don't have any sort of life in your pitch, and you don't want to stifle that. And so I think that it's okay, to lean into certain behaviors if that's you, if that's authentically you. For instance, I'm like such a hand talker. I'm just always all over the place, and sometimes I like really want to kind of stay in, but then I find that I'm not being that great of a presenter because I just like want to be all over the place with my hands. And so that's just part of my thing. Like that is authentically me. So when I'm pitching, I'm using my hands and it's really emphasizing stuff with my hands, and that's okay because that's me and it feels authentic and I'm doing a good job with the pitch itself. And so yes, try and work on things like, work on making eye contact, work on trying to stop saying as I just did, or things like that, but really focus on the story and being concise and making sure that your message is getting across. And the more you practice, as I said, a lot of that will just sort of organically fall away, a lot of the pauses for and likes, because you've memorized it, and you're now working on making sure that it feels lively because you've got all the words in place, so you don't need to pause and think about what to say next. And as I said, really think about what you're offering someone when you pitch to them. So it's not just, hey, I have this idea, I think it's really great, I want you to care about it, but it's no, what are you offering them that they're not getting elsewhere? Why should they care? These are the things that you should really honestly write down. Sit down one day and say, okay, what do I need? Who do I need it from? Why should they care? What am I offering them? And how do I want them to get involved? And really be able to answer those questions. And as I said, have maybe the answers are different based on who you're speaking to, whether it is someone who will be a consumer of the product, whether that's watching the film or owning the thing that you're making, who will participate in making it, like your cast and crew or your collaborators if it's not film specific, and then who will actually maybe be putting in money, because if you're talking about and pitching to investors, and you really have to have a business plan and know what you're offering them in return in terms of value, and that is like that's when you really are kind of beyond just yourself, and you would maybe have someone in place who is, in the sense of film, it's like your producer, your line producer, who's actually put together a budget and everything like that. But we're gonna kind of talk small and just think about story and you pitching at the early stages of getting people involved. So something that you want to do before you go into a pitch is I really like to find a routine that makes me feel comfortable. It's really important that you don't look uncomfortable and that you look confident, that you feel confident. And so for some people, that is maybe just spending some time alone for a certain amount of time, or maybe you're the type of person who sort of feeds off of energy, so talking to people and actually like getting that kind of energy will help you. I, for instance, like to do a bit of yoga before I'm going to pitch because I find it both relaxing and energizing. That maybe doesn't work for everyone, but really test different things, test out different scenarios to see what works for you and what is successful for you, so that you can really get a routine going before every pitch that you have to give. And know different environments too. Sometimes you're in front of a room on a stage with a crowd. Other times you're one-on-one in a meeting room and you're just sitting at a table. But really kind of practice different scenarios and trying different things before them so you know what works for you. And as I said, it's really all about the why. You want to be able to answer why in a variety of ways. Why your voice, your vision for it, why this thing, this story, or this product, why now? Why does it need to be made right now? What is sort of the bigger picture of it all that will make a difference, or whether, for an individual or for the world as a whole or for specific groups of people, and, why are you the person to tell that story or to make that thing, to get it out into the world, and why are they relevant to the inclusion of participating in that and getting it out there and making it? And as I said, usually you have a limited amount of time, so you want to practice makes perfect, and you want to make sure that you can kind of land it in whatever that time is over and over again. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 2 minutes. I've seen pitches where you have 90 seconds to pitch to a room, and you have to make sure that you are clear about what it is that you're pitching, what your goals are, and that you come off as sort of enthusiastic and energized, but not all over the place as well. And so it's all about balance, and you really want to make sure that you're practicing that and getting really good at that. And, it depends on, as I said, you should think about your goal, but not necessarily your big picture goal, like, okay, I need to get this thing funded, that's my goal. But you want to have sort of shorter term goals, like it may be to get a second meeting, it may be to get someone to commit to read your script, it may be to get someone to commit to sign on as a producer. And so there's sort of the bigger picture goal, but then there's an immediate goal that should really be kind of your metric for success with your next pitch or your next meeting. So I'd actually love for you all to give this a shot. You should find a partner, and one person is going to pitch, and the next person is just going to listen you are not going to interrupt. You are not going to give any feedback. After that person has 5 minutes to pitch, you are going to ask questions about clarity and purpose. And the other person is going to take notes about your questions and sort of try to get a sense of, okay, this is how this is coming off based on these questions I'm getting. Okay, so no feedback, only questions after the person has pitched. So I'm gonna set a timer and you have 5 minutes. So find a partner and then I'm gonna set a timer, you have 5 minutes. Did everyone finish their pitch? Yes. Did everyone get to questions? Did anyone not get to the questions? Okay. Sorry?
Wait, that was the 8 minutes up?
No, I'm asking, so now is when you would switch to the questions. But if anyone had a very short pitch and got to the questions, we can switch. But if anyone needs more time, you should absolutely take the time. You want to switch? You're finished? Okay. So now you're going to reverse roles, and the other person is going to do their pitch. You have 5 minutes, and then the other person is going to ask these questions. You don't have to ask all of these questions, but the goal is to allow the pitcher to see where the gaps were in their clarity and what is interesting to the listener that the pitcher is not giving them. And that sort of will help you refine your pitch and see, okay, well, maybe you were giving too much information about this thing that wasn't appealing or, wasn't really the important part of what your audience wants from you. And so maybe someone gave a perfect pitch and you didn't have to ask any of these follow-up questions, but I have a feeling that, you would have to ask a couple. So let's switch roles and the other person will do their pitch and then you can ask any questions related to clarity and purpose and specificity. Did everyone get through their pitch? Did anyone not do the questions yet? No? Okay. So now we're going to actually switch partners, find a new partner, and one of you is going to do the same pitch that you just did. Hopefully you kind of have a little bit of insight into how to improve upon it. And the other person is going to, you have 2 minutes to do your pitch. After your pitch is over, the other person is going to pitch your project back to you based on what they think it is, okay? No feedback, just listen to the person's pitch, and then you tell them back what their film is or their project or whatever it is that they pitched to you, okay? Make sense? Okay, now you should be switching places. The other person, you pitch your idea, 2 minutes, and then the other person pitches that idea back to you. Okay, time's up, everyone. So now, who would like to pitch for the room? Need a volunteer? Yeah, great.
Maybe we should get a mic.
Yeah, I think a mic would.
Maybe
If you're comfortable coming up in front of the room.
or just turn around with the mic. It's up to you. Just so the room can see you.
Mic check. All right, cool. The ability to
Stand up. I think standing up at least.
the ability to have Metro cards on your phone and have an app, and you can read that. Like you could have your credit card on the file, and you could refill your card like constantly instead of having like to go down to the subway station because some women don't like that and some people don't like to interact down there and shit. So what? Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. And yeah, so I feel like it's just, and then also like within purchasing the app, if you're not a person that likes, if say your phone dies, you can also, when purchasing the app, we also like mail you like 2 Metro cards, and it has a specific serial number, and it also, when refilling on the app, it also refills your Metro card. So in case your phone dies, you could have your Metro card on you. So it saves time and everything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Extra credit.
So,
Extra credit. Oh my lord. Follow me on Instagram.
would anyone? What's your name?
Omar?
Omar.
Yeah.
Would anyone be willing to tell Omar his idea back to him for the room?
And if it's not nice, keep your opinions. All right.
Thank
We
you.
got a volunteer. I like this.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I think the idea of using your phone is very practical for the modern day. But at the same time, I think if we ever had to redo the MetroCard system, I think going along the lines of having it to where you can use your phone and use a system similar to the Oyster card or Smart Tap in London and DC. Because if your phone dies, which I've been having battery issues lately, so I feel the struggle. But yeah, I definitely think that having everything on your phone with the ability to have a card is ingenious, because if you're in a rush and you don't want to miss your train, which happened to me this morning, you just tap it and go.
That's great feedback on the idea. Thank you. We can give you a round of applause. Thank you. I'd love to know if anyone would like to give feedback on his pitch, the actual manner in which he pitched the idea. You can also say, if I think it would be valuable to him to know whether or not you like the actual idea as well, but since we're focusing on pitching and the effectiveness of it.
I think it was effective because, like, when he started talking about it being on your phone, like, the first thing that went in my head was, like, what if your phone dies? And he had, like, the counteract, whatever,
Yeah.
argument for it. So that was good because there's no doubt now. Like, you have a backup. And he just had it planned out. Like, you get 2 Metro cards, he's going to mail it for you. Like, yeah, step-by-step process. So, yeah.
That was, thank you. Anyone else have thoughts?
All right, thanks. Now, for an on-the-spot thing, I thought he did a good job.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Like, he thought of that in a couple of minutes, which I thought was good and impressive. However, I was just offended by his use of some light vulgarity in his language. Sugar, honey, iced tea. But that was it. No, he did a good job.
Great. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. So yeah, I thought that was great. You definitely want to know your audience, and so if it is a room that maybe wouldn't like vulgar language, then maybe you want to kind of prepare for that. My one note is that you should introduce yourself at the top of a pitch and sort of thank the people for being there or for listening or whatever the situation is, but say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and thank you for listening to my idea, or thank you for being here. I'm going to pitch, and then you go into what it is, sort of the setup, because people want to feel like you're speaking to them, and part of that is introducing yourself. I'm sorry. If you'd like to. Okay. Okay. Okay, so who else would like to practice their pitch for the room? Thank you.
So my idea for a pitch is overhauling our youth development system in sports, because one of the issues we've noticed lately is a lot of corruption going on within the NCAA. Whereas you look over in Europe, they're letting kids play first team, like play with the pros when they're as young as 16. Because when you think about a lot of the best players in the world, you're ready by the time you're, I would say, 16, 17. The counter argument to it would be the education, but at the same time, when you look at some of the classes a lot of the students in the major D1 schools are taking, is it really worth it? But at the same time, I think we can keep the D1, we can keep the college system, but have the youth development system to where we give teams the ability to recruit local players, which will build a connection with the fans. And you also remove a lot of the corruption. You also allow these young kids to provide for their families, which is something that's a very serious topic, because a lot of people view this as a way to get out of poverty, which is when you put in the hard work, but there's things you can't prepare for, injuries and stuff like that. So I think if we put kids in a better position where they learn from they're playing with pros, they're learning what to do. They're not really being put into tough situations. It's not going to work for everybody, but I think it's something that we can definitely look into in the future.
Great, thank you. Any thoughts, feedback? Anyone like to share?
Or pitch back,
Yes, or pitch back?
saying what they heard.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Omar Loa.
Yes.
I just when introducing to your audience subject or anything, looking around the room, try to see who your audience is, and I want to say like certain words to use to get to a point, because a person's attention can only be limited to so much to if you're throwing too much information at them, and they might get like wrong ideas. So definitely like clarity about your like about anything that you're trying to present to a person.
Yes, that's great. Clarity is huge, and being concise. You sometimes when you're problem solving, when you're presenting a pitch that is going to either change the way something is done or solve a problem, maybe you set up the problem first and then you introduce your solution. And so the audience understands the context and really knows exactly what you're selling to them. Who else? Who else has thoughts or would like to pitch for the room? We have a hand over here.
Oh, great. Sorry. You're in my blind spot.
It's all right. Just real quick, just piggybacking off what Evan said, that people don't understand that high school sports is a multi-million-dollar, even middle school sports is becoming like a multi-million-dollar industry. So these kids are the only ones not making money off of any of this. So the AAU teams are making money, travel teams are making money, shoe sponsors are making all types of money. So really the kids are the only ones not making money. So having a system in place where they could learn to maybe pay for play like they do in the pros, or like Evan said over in Europe, can really help them for futures. Maybe it's be run by a few ex-pros of the sport, so people really understand how much work these kids put in, because it's a full-time job, like in high school, in middle school, and in college. It's a full-time job. On top of that, you have to go to school, and many of these kids aren't from the greatest places, so you have a single mom who's probably working really hard to provide for the whole family. So like just reiterating like what Evan said, high school sports is a multi-million-dollar industry, so these kids should be getting some of the money.
That was a great sort of use of personalization and creating specific situations, very relevant situations of where this matters. I think that was excellent. And also you kind of ended on a call to action and a moment that gets your audience to feel passionately involved. And so you kind of have, I think that was just great, sort of call back to that pitch and an addition to it. And I think if the two of you pitched together, maybe that would be like a way to tackle the subject. But yeah, that was just really effective. Who else? Pitches?
Hi, I'm Celine. So pretty much, I've been here for 4 years now, and I immediately after my second year, I was wondering, so now when you guys come in the morning and you're rushing and you're late for class and you have to pull out your ID, who struggles to like find it in the bottom of their bag or like in their jacket? Yeah. So pretty much I thought of, it's close to what Omar said, having our IDs on an app, so you just scan and run in and go. So that's pretty much my idea. I mean, just have your phone charged and have it on, and it has your picture on and everything, and then you just scan it and run in. Thanks.
Thank you. Who would like to? Thank you.
I think the idea of going with apps in general is a smart idea, but at the same time, it should exist mainly as a supplement to the ID, to where if you forgot your wallet or you lost your ID, which has happened to me on a couple of occasions, you can just pull out your phone, scan it, and you're fine. It's something that I think with technology in particular, sooner or later, everyone's going to have a smartphone. So it's definitely worthwhile to invest in the infrastructure to think about, but at the same time, always have a backup plan.
Great, thank you.
Oh, the pitch was short, simple, and very relatable.
That's great, thank you. Who else has comments about the pitch? Or just, compliments even?
I thought that her pitch was wonderful. I mean, it makes total sense. Nowadays, when you go to a theater, you can buy your tickets online, and you can have, your barcode in your phone, and then you just scan and go in, right? So that would be a very simple thing to do in a school like that, and we'll give a quick access to everybody, because everybody's on their phone. They're never going to lose their phone, like they lose their wallets.
Great. Yeah, I thought that it was wonderful that you turned to face the audience, you introduced yourself, you engaged by asking them a question and found that there was a common problem that they all face, and it was very personalized, and you were very concise with your pitch. I think that the only thing really is just sort of wrapping it up in a more of a call to action, or just thanking them, something that feels like there's an end to it. Who else would like to go? I know that there's going to be a pitch contest, right, at some point, so anyone who's participating in that should probably practice. Anyone else? Great, thank you.
I don't have much practice here.
It's okay, that's what this is for.
Straight off the top of the head, basically. Thank you. Hey, I'm Matthew Durazo. You guys enjoy going to the beach, right? When it gets a little warmer out? Yeah. And sometimes, I'm like 25% Irish, so it's sort of easy to I get sunburned. And sometimes I forget, I don't have a strong enough SPF suntan lotion on me. And I would like, my idea is a booth as you walk into the beach that you step into, and you choose what type of suntan lotion you would like, the SPF that you need, and you press a button, and it sprays your whole body with suntan lotion. Because everyone knows when you sit on the beach, you maybe there's little kids running around, kicking sand all about, and you might get sand on your calves and your ankles. So when you go to rub it in, it's all gritty. It's not comfortable rubbing the lotion in. So I would like a machine that does it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Who would like to either pitch that idea back or offer comments?
Will you pass it back? All right, Sam, this kind of sounds a bit funny, so here's the thing. I don't know what most people think about that, but it could sound controversial to some, it could sound controversial to others, so my pitch is going to be straight off the bat like yours is. So the thing I do, both of us, we have to practice it not only more, but research our ideas further and think to the back end, what are more the disadvantages as opposed to advantages? But overall, it was pretty good and well done, though.
What are the disadvantages?
Well, what if the machine goes wrong? What if there's something in it that goes wrong and it explodes? And I die!
Yeah, say that about cell phones, too. Say that about phones.
Like, what if it lights up on fire and I get roasted like a hot dog? No, but think about it. You go inside that machine and it's spraying your whole entire body. And what if something goes wrong? Maybe the machine gets clogged with something or something, and then it explodes, and you're in it.
Can you pass it over there?
I was just wondering, where would the funds for the booth and all the lotion come from? Would it come out of taxes?
No, this isn't a government funding.
So who's paying for all the suntan lotion and the booth?
And you'd have to pay. But you didn't say that, right? You'd have to
Yeah, but would it be cheaper just to buy?
phone to it or swipe your card.
Yeah, sure. Nothing's free.
So, but would it be cheaper to have that, the booth and the lotion there, or would it be cheaper to just get an umbrella and your own lotion?
Of course, yeah, it might be cheaper to get your own lotion, but then you have to rub it in yourself.
So this is doing it for you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's like getting a tan? It's like going to get a tan, like at the salon?
Yeah. You're rubbing yourself. It rubs lotion into your skin all over your body.
Instead of spray tan, it's spray lack of tan.
Yes.
All right.
We have another comment.
So this actually is a very good idea. This is an idea that we can refine and make it a very good civic investment, because instead of having it rub into your skin, you can have it as like a shower setup similar to where the showers. So you know how at the beach you have the showers to shower off? You can upgrade the free. It wouldn't be rubbing into your skin, but it would be kind of like a spray. Instead of having like free sunblock that you rub into your skin, you have it as like a little hose with a nozzle that you can spray all over your body. And it's something that a lot of the best ideas seem ridiculous at first, but once you figure out the need and how you can adapt it for real life, it can definitely be a good thing, because a lot of times because I've seen free sunblock being offered at beaches, which is really good, especially with the sun, especially with issues with the ozone layer. It's a real issue that we're definitely going to need to address in the coming years. So I think having more free sunblock and having more interesting ways to apply it could definitely be a good civic investment. And for public health too, because we're saving a lot of money in the long run.
Thanks. That was great. That was so that was really great, because you want to think about who your audience is. Oh, go ahead.
Matthew. Yes. Great idea. It was presented on Shark Tank, and guess what? Loved it. The sharks turned it down. And you want to know why the sharks turned it down? Product liability. If you put a little on and maybe you got overburnt, as Thomas was referring to, whether it be the government or whether it be a private investor who invented it, you're going to be sued. So the sharks passed on it for product liability issues.
Thank you. So, in terms of pitching, though, I think that these responses were really great about thinking about who your audience is, because if you were targeting consumers, it would be about, the ease of it and the convenience and the why, the need for it. But if it were about an investor, you would really be thinking about how cost effective it is, and really wanting to crunch your numbers and know that. And maybe it is about sort of a bigger social issue about, protecting. And I think that, so you kind of want to have different pitches tailored to who you're speaking to and really know who that room is. And I just think that is really great that everyone kind of gave you a very different reaction that would kind of reflect who you were speaking to. Who else would like to pitch? Yes. Thomas?
Can you guys pass that back? Thank you so much.
So Sam, mine's kind of similar to yours, but not exactly. I'm Thomas, and here's my product. I call it Aqua Alarm. So the idea of it is that, okay, there are issues like childhood drowning, where if it's in a bathtub in the home, or in a pool outside in public, private, you name it, or maybe at the beach. But we'll get to that soon. So the idea of it is that it's an alarm that could work underwater. You set it up within like a certain frame underneath the water, where if you want outside or in the walls of the pool. And there's a whole interconnected system that goes back to the lifeguards, because the lifeguards alone and their 5 senses are not enough, as we see, because some drownings occur and they may not even know it right away, or maybe too late. So this could help with that. Say now the whole system is connected, and say someone is drowning, there are sensors underneath the water that sense it's happening, human behavior related to drowning. and that message gets transmitted through a system and gets to the lifeguards, and the alarm goes off pretty much, and it's like loud. It would be really loud because it's an emergency. Someone is about to die. So they'll get notified right away, and just being there immediately. There will be lifeguards on the back end reading the signal, and people on front told through an earcom to go right away. It's kind of like 911 in a way, but with water in terms of drowning. So that's one part of it. But what if the lifeguard is deaf, let's say? So on that back end, they would need something visual that represents an emergency in terms of drowning. So there would be a symbol that would be red, and it would most likely be a crossbone and skull with water saying someone is drowning. If the person is blind, that's harder. If they are. Yes, a loud sound would work if they are blind, because if they have that sound they can identify with that represents drowning, then that's something they could listen to and be like, something is wrong. So, and other than that, we would have like all these different systems for recognizing that a drowning occurrence is happening in terms of a public or private pool area, where if it's a public facility for lifeguards, if it's a home system, private pool for people who own their own pools at home, that system would be sort of similar, but there'll be people on the inside of the house that the alarm could sense, and then there'll be people out front in the pool watching in person, because whenever I go in the pool, I have someone out there with me, just in case. And so there'll be people outside as well on backup, and they can communicate with each other saying something is happening and get it done a lot faster. There may still be drownings that occur and people don't make it. That's going to happen no matter what, but this could reduce that rate by a lot if put into it effectively. And then there's the beach. That's much more complex though. That's going to take some time. But to start off, public pool facilities and home private pool facilities. That's where I'll start. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, ask me.
So I like the social engineering part of it. The only problem I kind of have with it is, are we going to have like GoPros attached to sensors? Because if someone hacks into those GoPros, that's going to be a serious liability on your part. But at the same time, I think this is a fantastic thing if you have like small children in your pool. I feel it's a very good home product, but I don't think it really has much potential to be a public utility, because where are we going to get the money to, like, especially when you think of how big the U.S., like all the coast on the U.S. is, and that's just the oceans. You have to put it in lakes, rivers, canals. It's a very good private product that you can buy for your house, but I think the much grander public scale, there's not that much growth. You're also going to have people who feel it's a little, I wouldn't say unnecessary, but at the same time, there's things that we can definitely use public money for. Despite safety is a big deal, but at the same time, I feel this is a very good private product, but at the same time, just thinking about using it for a beach, just not really a good idea.
Yeah, that's why I said we'll think about the beach.
I think it's a good idea. I'm just going to speak without it. I don't like the microphone. But no, I think it's a good idea. However, I think that if you look at it, I would bet, I don't know the statistics, but I would bet that more drownings occur in the ocean and at beaches than they do in swimming pools, because a lifeguard has to survey a whole entire shoreline rather than just a pool of clear water. So I think that you should be prioritizing doing this at beaches rather than, I think lifeguarding at a pool, though I've never done it, I think it's not that difficult. I think at a beach, there's a lot more things that can occur. You can be play fighting sharks, riptides. So I think you should prioritize doing it at the beach.
Yes.
I think I really like the idea, and I think that it can be. I think that this could definitely be worthwhile, but I just think that you're thinking too much into it, and it could be way more simple.
Yeah.
You know, like it really could, no, like seriously, it really could be a lot simpler. Like you can, like, there's just ways of like monitoring, and you want to keep it small and simple too, because it's like, you know, when you go to the beach, you just pack like whatever, like a water bottle and like a sandwich. You know what I mean? You don't want to have all types of devices and stuff, and it's like, you know, you just have to just keep it small and simple, and you can just throw it in the bag and whatever.
Yeah.
So when pitching businesses or sort of problem-solving oriented stuff, you definitely want to do your research and know what the demand is for something that you're making. It's about that why, not just why because you think it's a good idea or you want to experiment with this or you think that there's a place for it, but that there's, you know, really a demand for it, and you want to lead your pitch with that. You want to have statistics. How many drownings happen per year in a backyard pool because no one is monitoring it, or, you know, in the ocean even when there are lifeguards. These kinds of things so that you can set up a demand for this thing that you are now creating a solution for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's really why, you know, if any of you are going to be participating in this pitch contest, definitely do your research ahead of time so that you have numbers. Numbers really impress people, having statistics and kind of a big picture setup for why it matters beyond just your idea. Anyone else want to pitch or have any questions? Yes?
You were saying that you have to have a demand, right?
Mm-hmm.
To have a demand. But that works well for maybe a product.
Yes.
But when you're talking about a film, a creative endeavor, you know, how does that work? Because, you know, you don't necessarily make films always because there is a demand,
Absolutely.
but because you need to tell that story.
Right.
Right? From a filmmaker point of view, you want to make that story.
Right.
So how would you address that?
So with film or creative stuff in general, it's much more about touching people in a personalized way, about how the story you want to tell can resonate with them. And you do want to have a why that is bigger than yourself. And maybe that's, you know, this is an important story and it's never been told before, or this has representation that isn't often seen on screen, or this will provide jobs for these types of people who don't typically get them, or, you know, I believe that this story will create change, will create conversation. My second feature titled About a Donkey is about a family that gets a donkey, but what it really is about a family that's sort of stuck and they don't all accept each other for who they are, and it's very timely in our current political climate, and I am trying to create conversation between people and build bridges and allow people to find ways of finding acceptance. And so that's my why, and that's why it matters beyond my desire to just tell this story about a family and a donkey. So you really have to think about what is the mission of what you're making beyond just the story that you feel passionate about.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have questions or want to pitch? No? Well, if not, then, you know, this is basically it. I would love to get your email if you are interested in getting this deck or getting more information about Seed and Spark. I can also answer any questions you have about crowdfunding if that is of interest to you. We are a platform. A lot of you weren't pitching films. We are a platform for film specifically, but I can still answer questions about crowdfunding in general because that's my area of expertise. Thank you.
No questions at all?
Hello.
Hi.
So is crowdfunding just for like finances, or is it for interest? So like, have you ever pitched for like an investment and then you got someone totally on board and then it ended up like tanking horribly?
I have not personally, no. So crowdfunding. So a big part of that is making sure that you have, are we talking film or are we talking film? So a big part of that is really making sure that you have a budget in place that is realistic and will get the film done, and having a producer on board if you're not that person that will really execute and make sure that the project gets finished and is what you intended for it to be. I personally think that we're in a weird place with film where there's so much creativity and there's a lot of content being made, and there are so many, equipment is cheaper, so there's so many options for you to get a film made. But on the back end, people aren't really paying for films in the way that they used to. They don't go to the movies the way that they used to. They expect to sort of pay $11 a month and have thousands of films available to them. And so it's very hard to promise a return on investment. And so you really, when finding investors, it's largely about, the mission of the film and trying to find someone with money who cares about that mission, because it is very hard to say, you're going to get a return on your investment. I don't think that investors give to film for some big payoff. They give to film because of the story and why it matters. That said, I personally choose not to go that route because I don't like the idea of giving away the rights to my work, or having to, because there's such few returns on investment, or really returns on film in general, I try to make sure that that all comes to me and I'm able to funnel it into my next creative project. So my way of doing that is to not go the investor route and to instead crowdfund. And that really is about building your audience, finding the people that care about the thing that you want to make and want to see it, and you get, a few hundred people to give you somewhere between $10 and $1,000 each, and that allows you to retain the rights to your work, get the content made, build an audience of people who care about it and want to watch it, and share it with them eventually and turn them into amplifiers for that, not only that project, but your next thing. And so that's what we do at Seed and Spark. There is equity crowdfunding now that's starting to bubble up, where you could actually offer points towards the ownership of the film. However, I think that that's not something I would do, and I think that it's a little bit risky, and it's, as I said, because there's no return, really there's such a small return on investment, you want to make sure that anyone who's investing in your film understands that, and that you're being responsible about who you give ownership to, because you don't want anyone to feel gypped. Like, oh, they're investing and they're going to get something back, but they don't really understand what that means in film. And so, yeah, but that is an option to explore. I'm not quite there yet on equity crowdfunding. You're welcome.
One of the things I've noticed about a lot of people who crowdfund is they'll offer rewards or incentives. Because I follow a lot of photographers on Instagram who will mention that they'll have tiers on their Patreon where the dollar Patrons get access to some pretty basic photos, whereas as you progressively go up and up, you get more rewards, more exclusive access. I saw a guy who, his Patreon said if you give him $1,000, he'll personally come and hang out with you, kind of jokingly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for a serious project, I would think for a film, do you offer exclusive previews, behind the scenes stuff, and things like that?
Yeah, so I just pulled up the incentive slide of the crowdfunding class that I often teach. And there are a lot of platforms that recommend you offer swag type things like t-shirts and mugs and, bags and branded stuff like that. I personally don't think that filmmakers should spend money on that, because you're already trying to raise money for your film. And unless you get a partner who will offer you that stuff for free as a sponsor of the film, it doesn't seem like that's what you should be spending money on. And so I'm a big believer that with film, what you are promising people is an end product that they will get to watch and maybe own a copy of, and a unique experience to be part of making something that's something that they wouldn't get elsewhere. That's what's unique about your project. So your incentives should be about A, giving them that experience, and B, building the world that exists around the film that you're making. So your higher up stuff should be things like getting to visit set. Everyone who is a filmmaker knows that a lot of being on a set is, sitting around waiting on lighting and watching the same thing over and over again. But people who don't work in film think it's exciting, they think it's glamorous. They would be really excited to get to come to set and eat a meal with the cast and crew. Maybe they get to yell action at some point. They get to come to the wrap party, to the premiere. Anything that feels exclusive and like part of the experience of making it, that's all your higher up stuff. And then, at around $25, you want to give people either a copy of it, like a digital download, or a streaming link that is maybe after the festival run but before its VOD release, and that allows exclusive access. And then your lower level stuff, this is an example we have up here that's one of our favorites. So the most common contribution is $25, and depending on the affluency of your audience, it's either, the second most common is either $10 or $50, but more often it's 10. And we don't think that that amount, because you're going to get hundreds of people giving at that level, it shouldn't feel too exclusive and it shouldn't cost you any money. What it should cost you is a bit of time, and it should inadvertently market the campaign. So this example up here is from a filmmaker who was doing a film called Time Signature. It was about a woman who was going to the concert of her favorite band and found out that the drummer had traveled back in time to tell her something. So at the $25 level, the filmmaker, Sean Mannion, was giving people the option to be photoshopped into any time of their choosing. And I am friends with Sean. I told him to surprise me, and I'm not like a huge Amelia Earhart fan, but he knew that I would want to meet a woman in history, and so he photoshopped me into this photo with Amelia Earhart, and I shared it all over the place. And that was a really popular incentive for people, because they were all really funny and cute and surprising, and he started sharing them on social media, thanking people and tagging them, and their friends and family were finding these photos and they were like, what's going on? I want my own photo. And so people were giving $25 just to get their own photo of whatever time they chose. One of my favorites was a friend of ours who wanted to be on the moon, and so he took a photo of her riding a camel and put it on the moon. And so it was just very cute. They were all fun. And so people were really refreshing the page, his campaign page, to see the next photo that was going to come out. And that incentivized people because they were getting this like unique, personalized thing. And it was also just marketing the campaign all on its own in a way, because he didn't really have to do much sharing. It was just like getting people to share their own photos. So we like to see like visual, shareable, personalized things at the lower level that really make people feel included and also market the campaign itself. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, we talked about this a little bit this morning, but I wanted to bring it up again because I feel like that this is something that's a big misconception. At a certain point, I had it too about crowdfunding, and this gets to your question about failure or worries about failure, right? And I mean, although I guess you're talking about more whether the film gets made or not, but there are also fears of failure of crowdfunding. So one of right. But so I think we were talking about the fact that I think there's a misconception that people just think, well, let's just put it out there on a crowdfunding platform. First of all, Seed and Spark luckily like puts you through a process, so that's not going to really happen to you. But I think also like you have to go out and figure out who could you get seed money from, who do you know will contribute before the campaign starts. So if you've done this a few times, maybe you have a mailing list and you can make it an estimate, and Christina had like a formula for that. You want to say that?
Sure. So the formula I like to tell people is on average only 30% of a team's full network will contribute, and 30% of your goal, getting to that milestone is sort of the sweet spot where strangers feel comfortable getting involved. And because the most common contribution is $25, what you want to do is take your full email list, take 30% of that, multiply it by 25, and that dollar amount needs to equal 30% of your goal. If it does not, your goal is too high. But that kind of gives you a foundation to start off of in terms of setting your goal and having a realistic view of how you could have a successful campaign, because you know that this percentage of your email list is definitely going to contribute. This is probably what they're going to contribute at, and that is enough to get me to that point where strangers feel comfortable getting involved. But in terms of also just like failure, I think that failure is part of this, you know, and films are never, I can tell you I've made many films and they're never quite what I envisioned. You know, they're always a little bit different. I had to make creative sacrifices, whether it was because of budget or locations or the weather or things that were just out of my control, or maybe I made mistakes. I think that as long as you are honest with people and you make them feel involved and you're inclusive in terms of, you know, hey, here are the mistakes I made, and here's what I learned and what I'm going to take with me to my next project. And, you know, this thing isn't exactly what I promised it would be, but here it is, and I'm proud of it, and I hope that you enjoy it for what it is. That, I think people respect that, and that people will come along with you to the next thing because you feel human and you feel real and flawed, and people relate to that. And it's really just about showing your integrity, that you really tried to deliver on everything you promised, and that you did the work to make sure that the conditions were there so that you could. But certain things, you know, things happen, and I think people understand that. But it's really just about communication and honesty.
And practically, in terms of laying the groundwork for yourself, if you don't have, like, first of all, you should have at least a small team, because as Christina pointed out earlier, it's really like a full-time job. And for one person, especially a person in school with a job, you need to have more people to work on it. But we all have these other commitments, so we need to have a team. But if you guys don't have a lot of email connections or an email list, you know, could really just start to think about, you know, here's my extended friends and family who I think would at least give $25, or maybe I can count on these 5 people to give $100, and really just do it like that, and then actually tell them before the campaign and ask them, you know, I'm doing this, would you make this my Christmas present? Or, you know, however you want to approach it, you can approach it in a very practical way, and then you add that up, and that adds up to $1,000. So you know you ought to be able to raise like $3,000, a little bit more, right? So you can, all these ideas are scalable, you know, you can bring them down to a very practical level. And the other thing that I just found out that's kind of cool, if anybody has kind of environmental ideas, there is a crowdfunding platform. Do you know about this? It's called IOB, which stands for In Our Backyard. And they are getting some matching funds from people like Con Edison. So my son's school just had a fundraiser for a gardening program there. And they had, Con Edison was matching like dollar for dollar for the first 2 weeks, I think. So, you know, you have to find your platform that works for you if you're going to crowdfund too.
Absolutely, yeah. Just, you know, with the same way that if we're talking filmmaking, I think that your film is sort of won or lost in the pre-production stage. So is your crowdfunding campaign, or even, you know, the pitch, the practice and the work and the preparation you put into it before you actually go live, and whatever go live means to you, that's really what makes you successful.